and welcome to the Quincy Access Television Studios. I'm Mark Crosby. Thank you for joining us for a conversation with, in this case, councilors at large. And the first councilor to join me in this session is Councilor at Large Ann Mahoney. So Ann, welcome back.
Thanks so much, Mark. Nice to be here.
Great to have you. There's a lot to get to. Most of this, I would imagine, is just the kind of hot topics. They're what really are on the mind of residents throughout the city.
There's a lot of stuff on the minds of residents throughout the city, and there's a lot going on in the city, some positive and some not being responded to so positively. So,
not too long ago, Shelley Dean, who of course is a department in the city, and she is she works for renewable energy. I can't think of the actual title of her department, but
and of course I can't either at this
so,
very moment, so we're not going to be able to help you.
But she talked about solar panels,
Yes,
and she talked about fitting that into the city. It was a presentation before the City Council.
Yeah, so they brought it before us because I think they're going out to bid for this right now, and they had done it before as a pilot with the schools. So a lot of the schools were retrofitted on the roofs of the schools with solar panels, and we're seeing some rewards from that. And what we're doing the same thing is with different buildings in different areas throughout the city. They're going to do the same type of thing. So they brought the presentation before us with the locations that they believe would be the best suited for where the solar panels will go. Some of them are in schools, some of them are in buildings, some of them are, like one is up by the animal shelter, and it did get approved, and it's going to go out for bid for now. So it's a good thing for the city to be doing right now, but it's aggregate energy that we're going to be able to collect and be able to hopefully save in the long run for our city.
There was some talk about the location next to the animal shelter, and I guess if that was a prime location for solar panels? Yeah,
so I think when they did the presentation for the animal shelter, they did talk of it being, having the energy, the solar panels being there. And, that's a location that they're putting it at. But the question that I was having was whether or not that's going to be, if it's going to be doable, because they have to kind of put the panels on something and dig down to do it, and it's a tough area up there, and is it cost effective to do it? So the business will come in and be able to give us a bid to do that. I don't think it's going to matter where those solar panels go, because we can fuel the buildings wherever they are that we're using, because it's aggregate throughout the whole city. The number of panels that we have, it's going to be all going through to the city of Quincy for that matter. But one of the places that I was questioning was why we wouldn't put it on top of Kilroy Garage, because that's a location that makes sense, because it's on top of a garage. They're not going to be harmful to any of the vehicles that are up there. It's just something that we would be able, it was direct sunlight would be hitting it. So, but there are many different places that we can put those in.
And the animal shelter itself, the roof of the animal shelter is already spoken for, so they couldn't have gone there.
Right. So the animal shelter itself has I believe it's going to be a turf roof that they'll be able to walk on top of the roof for, so they won't be able to put it up there. That's correct. Yeah.
One of the other
the reason why the reason why you don't like self-standing ones is because they're usually not as attractive, and you can put them on a roof and they can kind of fit into the landscape of things.
Right, and we should mention that these would be viewable on Quarry Street.
They would be. So, the thing is that people that live in those areas, that's a similar situation with Kilroy Square, where they said there's tenants that are taller buildings that don't want to look down on the solar panels. It's the same situation that's up there in Quarry Hill, where there's going to be people who will be able to see these as they're driving through or looking out their windows.
Do you think, though, it will become, I guess, just matter of fact that folks will see these around not only Quincy, but throughout the Commonwealth?
Yeah, I think you're going to see more and more as we're trying to lessen our footprint for fossil fuels. We have to do something that's going to be able to help us kind of move in that direction. And at this point, solar energy is one of the easier ones for us to be able to do. But we have to do it in all. We have to start looking at all avenues, like new buildings that we're doing. We have to find a way to get to net zero when we're doing those types of things, because eventually it's going to be required for our buildings to do that.
Also before the council, not too long ago, was the Quarry Hills lease extension. Talk about that. There was a presentation by the current owner. The lease extension is going to 99 years, which seems excessive.
It does. So I just want to back up a little bit, because that came before us at the City Council through the mayor last fall. And then I think the first presentation, when they came to us, it was really kind of given to us. No presentation was given to us. It was just, we were given the red-lined lease, and Mr. Walker just pretty much said we took out everything that was from, all of the dump area and everything that was cleaned up. That's all been removed, and nothing to look at here, folks. We're just going to, extend this by 99 years and call it a day. And I think they really thought it was going to go that smoothly. But I think what happened, though, is that they scratched the surface of something that none of us had really seen, which was the 50-year lease. And now as we were looking through it, we were kind of saying, wait, the ball fields aren't in great shape, and there's no trails. And it was interesting because as you read it, you were like, there was a skating rink. These are things that we didn't know, and everything's it's referred to as recreational facilities. There's no commercial anything written in anywhere that says it's a commercial property up there, even though it was a golf course. And it was just interesting how the 50-year lease was created. And the original 50-year lease was done from the Sheets administration, and there was actually no tax revenue that the city of Quincy would get at all. We wouldn't be collecting taxes or any tax revenue. It wasn't until the next administration came in that they renegotiated, and we started to get some monies that would be coming in once the golf course was created and the extra 9 holes was created. And that's really what's the money that the city of Quincy had been collecting. But interestingly enough, again, had they not brought it before us, we wouldn't be asking for, wait a minute, you want a 99-year lease? What about the first 50-year leases? And we're supposed to be getting money that's coming in. Where is that money? Where's the audits for that money? And then also, what has that money been spent on? It just opened a can of worms that I believe that the residents of the city of Quincy and everybody deserves to have an understanding for. And this is not just, it's not just questioning whether or not what Corey Hills is getting and doing and actually, what they have completed for us. But it's also on the city side of things. There's how are we doing with our accounting, and how many times have we had it audited, and what are we spending that money on? And let's be transparent about what we're doing there and accountable for that. But when you're asking for those things, there hasn't been an audit produced, and then only after they came back and Corey Hills came back the second time did the city say, oh, we are now going out to get an audit. So we did a 99-year lease, a red line to a 99-year lease, and then now we're backtracking and doing an audit. So I'd say that our fiscal house isn't in order when it comes to extending a lease for 99 years when we haven't really got our arms around the first 50 years. And this isn't saying Corey Hills is doing anything wrong or the city's doing anything wrong. It's just that we need to, as a city council, be able to make sure that we understand how we are functioning as a city, collecting those monies, where those monies are going to, and how we're accounting for them for the general public.
When the public did speak, they spoke of trails that weren't well marked. Mm-hmm. They spoke of ball fields flooding.
Mm-hmm. So, I can just speak to for the ball fields and the soccer fields. My kids played soccer, so when you would go up there, you'd have to kind of build a bridge to go over the moat to get to the soccer field. They were never taken care of in that situation. And the ball fields are the same situation. We didn't play baseball, so I can't speak for that, but I'd go and watch a few games myself during my time when I was up there. But, and the trails, I don't think the trails were ever created. And it was only when they brought it forward and the public came out and did their first they had their public forum where they were able to speak. Corey Hills then went back, and there was a lot of cut downs of high, tall, overgrown things, and they brought us for a walk, and they said they were going to put the trail marks up. Again, this is a situation where it's kind of like, because you were called out on it because we're looking at a 50-year lease, you're fixing it today, but we're 28 years in, so it should have been fixed 28 years ago. So we really, when somebody says, we've done it, we've checked the box, I don't want to check boxes. I want to be able to physically see it. When I go to other places, when I'm down in Plymouth or I go to Ponquag, you can see these trails are being taken care of, maintained. We want the same thing here in Quincy. We should expect the same thing when we're providing these types of partnerships with businesses such as Corey Hills to be able to do that. Corey Hills is a beautiful view. The golf course is beautiful. I'm not a golfer, so I may not have that appreciation, but I have an appreciation for the fact when I get up there, the view is really beautiful. And the other thing that really, wasn't taken into consideration, and they say that it's not their responsibility, is that exit ramp was created to solve the problem of the dump, to bring the big dig dirt into Quincy. It's a dangerous
It's one
area.
Of the worst 5 in the state, I believe.
Absolutely. And and it needs to be taken care of now. And the one battle would say that's why we need the 99-year lease, because we can force people to do things. No, that's not what we need the 99-year lease for. We don't need to have a 99-year lease to make sure that our government is working correctly. We need to start partnering with the people we need to partner with and make sure that an F-rated off-ramp is being taken care of and is prioritized. Let's show our weight of officials with those relationships we have with those high-powered people to make sure these things are being taken care of. Other communities get those things taken care of. We should be able to get that taken care of here.
So is that something that now sits at the state level?
As far as the state off-ramp is definitely something that works at the state level. So we have, we have state delegations that we work with here, but we also have relationships with the governor and lieutenant governor, and we should be able to have those conversations to make sure it's a priority. I can tell you that the plans are 25% done, but there's no monies put aside for that, and we need to make sure that that gets prioritized.
We talked, I just want to back space just a bit because Shelley Dean, I think it has come to me now, energy and sustainability.
Yes, it's terrible that I couldn't remember that myself.
It's terrible that I couldn't remember it.
I love Shelley Dean. She does a great job.
She does, absolutely.
She's very passionate.
And you can see that in her presentations. She's actually requested a couple of older city council meetings from me.
Her presentation was exactly what I would have anticipated that the administration's presentation would have been for the 99-year lease. If it was something that we were so proud of and something that we were doing such a great job on, we should have had that financial capacity that was being able to show what the city was getting, where the money was being spent, and how we were being able to reinvest back into our community because it was such a great deal for the city of Quincy. But it was just a verbal presentation with no backup and a 99-year lease that was redlined. And I'd like to also mention in that, Mark, when I asked the question, who negotiated the lease, Corey Hills had their high-powered attorneys in City Hall, and from what I understand, it was our city solicitor in the mayor's office. In the mayor's office, I'm not sure who in the mayor's office, but I'm assuming the mayor and maybe Mr. Walker, that were sitting down to negotiate that. We are being, in that situation, we're being very foolish about that because we should also have maybe somebody that's a little bit more sophisticated in those types of leases that we're drawing up. We're giving away our city for 99 years, and we better make sure that we're protecting those citizens of the city of Quincy for the future.
The community liaison position and equity and inclusion commission. Talk about that. You wanted an update. That's what the resolve was aimed at.
So this was another thing. We had a huge meeting back during COVID where we had over 100 people that came out to Zoom to talk to us about the things that are happening in our community. That this all was when people talk about this, we're talking about these events what you see on the national news and things that are happening. We may not have those same horrific things happening here in Quincy, but we do have things happening in our city. All people, all communities do. You might have, your child might get bullied or something might happen. And when it happens to an individual family, we want to make sure we have those safety nets and protections that are put in place. But when we're not talking about those types of things, and that's in a school, so in a school you can actually work with your principal, your guidance counselors and the people and bring the people together to have those conversations. We don't have it in our city. When we have issues in our city, the police might be taking care of it, but it's all one-sided and we're not seeing it. It's not transparent. We're hearing about it in the newspaper. You might have some graffiti that's written someplace or somebody being treated poorly or somebody shouting words out there. How do we protect our citizens and make them feel as though they're part of our community and feel like they are empowered in our community? And that's kind of what we were getting at with this liaison person for the mayor's office. But really what they were looking for is somebody, a department head, to start those conversations. It's not somebody who's going to come in and just check a box, and it's not somebody who's going to come in and magically fix things. We're never going to erase or eradicate racism, but what we might be able to do is bring those conversations in a way that we can actually all learn from each other and respect each other, build from a place of respect. And we can learn from other communities that are doing it as well, that might be doing it, that might be steps ahead of us here in Quincy. But this is a liaison position into the mayor's office. It's I think it's $75,000 that was put into the budget, and it hasn't been hired. Nobody's been hired, and that's the concern that we have.
And we are coming up to the FY24 budget. This was approved in the FY23, and no person in the position as of yet.
No, and what I fear is that this will just fall off the cash rolls and go into free cash potentially, or be absorbed someplace else in another department that might be overspending. Which again, we only see the budget once a year. In the school committee, we used to see the budget 4 times a year to be able to kind of check and balance to see things happen. But in our city government, we only see it once a year when we do the budget and when we approve the taxes. Other than that, we don't see it. And again, in other communities, what they're able to see is they're able to see complete transparency as to what's being spent live, and we don't do that here in the city of Quincy. We have PDFs of our budget books that are up, and it takes us a while to get our ducks in order.
And I guess my last question on this is, if it was budgeted in the 2023 and nothing was done with it, how does that look favorably on inclusion of that in the 2024?
I'm not sure, and I'm concerned about that. I mean, the one question that we were asking is like, can we have, there was a commission that was put together, I think that was run by Councillor Kane. What was the feedback? What was the report that came back? What were the learnings that we had? We had a public forum that we had over 100 people come out and talk to us. These are the types of things where you could take the opportunity. Isn't something we need to hire a consultant to come into? We hire consultants for everything else in the city of Quincy. Do we need to hire a consultant to really understand what it is we're trying to get accomplished here so that we can better serve our community? We do know that we have issues in our community, and we do know that we need to have better ways to be able to communicate. Maybe it's multi-languages, or maybe it's other things that we can do. But those are just the touching points of what really needs to happen in our community to make people feel, embraced and part of our community, and to take away that fear. So sometimes you'll hear something like, well, certain demographics are fearful of government because they've come from countries that their countries were not, very open to feedback from things. But we want people to have that feedback. We want to understand what's happening so that we can prevent it to happen in our community. We want to have that safe haven for people to live here. I know I feel safe most of the time here in Quincy, but some people don't. And and I want everybody to feel that they're being heard when they bring a complaint or an issue to the city of Quincy. I don't want to say complaint, but just an issue that's coming, that you're being heard and that you're being validated for what's happening. And then we'll try to figure out a way to, whether it's resolve the issue or better inform people of the things that are happening, because there's many different directions this can go on. This department or this person wouldn't be a one-stop solution. It would just be kind of a balancing act of being able to figure out what's happening and how we can deploy these information in different ways. I want that budget to come through in next year, but I'm not 100% convinced it's going to make it.
Let's look now at another resolve, an update on the purchase of 6 through 10 McGrath Highway.
Yeah, so this one was one of those ones that, this is something that's really frustrating because, when they purchased 610 McGrath Highway, it was in the paper, it was reported in the Quincy Sun, it was on the Mayor's podcast, it was in the Patriot Ledger saying that, this was purchased for AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, it was not purchased for multiple different disciplinaries that are in need, of organizations that are in need that are out there. That's the first problem.
And I remember you at the council saying, well, if it's Alcoholics Anonymous, Anonymous is part of that. A big part of that.
It's a huge part of it. I mean, having a family member who was an alcoholic who attended Alcoholics Anonymous, it's a very difficult thing, and they have to find the right places for them to go and places that they feel safe. And then they end up with, it's something that we shouldn't be putting a spotlight on or putting it next to the district courts or whatever you want to say. And also, it's anonymous, and they actually fund themselves. They don't accept buildings typically from cities to do this. I don't know any other city that has it. I mean, I went as far as to call Father Bills, who I know also has an AA portion of their programs that they have, and said, do you know of any other community that's purchased a building for AA? I've never heard of it. I've just never heard of it. And although it might sound noble, it's defeating the purpose of what that is for. And then go a little bit further, I scratched a little bit further, and I looked, and I had the auditor pull the actual invoices of what it was paid. It was paid for out of our district improvement financing funds. Now we have our administration coming out saying it's being paid for, from ARPA funds, but it's being paid for our district improvement financing funds, which is supposed to pay for all of the development we have in the downtown. That building happens to be in the footprint of the downtown, but it's not being purchased for what we believe we're supposed to be doing for the downtown. So there's definitely some mixed messages and misuse of money. It wasn't brought back to the city council. So the $53 million that was approved from the city council, I didn't approve it for different reasons, but money's being used like a piggy bank to be purchasing a building for whatever reasons that felt necessary, 610 McGrath Highway, that was owned by the McIntyre family, and for AA, and not transparent to the city government, that not transparent to the council, and not transparent to or accountable to the general public by going out saying we're using ARPA money, only to find out we're using district improvement financing. And then, when this happens and they essentially got caught with this, they came back and said, oh, we're going to go to Norfolk County and we're going to ask Norfolk County for their ARPA money to buy the building that we bought, which then brings the question up. Somebody said to me, does that mean Norfolk County then owns 610 McGrath Highway? I'm not sure, but what I'm saying is there's a very big can of worms that we opened up here, and it's another example of our administration not being factful or truthful with their taxpayers of the city of Quincy. And it's or with the city council, with their city government. So, being accountable, transparent, and factual is a concern that I have.
And how does this in your eyes, maybe relate to the Monroe Building and Quincy College?
It's very similar in the sense that the Monroe Building, they came to the city council when they looked like they weren't going to get what they wanted, meaning the administration. They turned around and at that time we were in the height of COVID, they turned around and they knew we were going to be getting money in from the federal government, and they purchased the Monroe Building with ARPA money. Another example of money that came in that was supposed to enhance and help our community get through something that none of us had ever lived through before. It's kind of amazing to me to think where we are today, sitting across from each other without masks on, that we ever even went through it, Mark, but we did. And a lot of people suffered from it. Businesses, small businesses, families, people who were self-employed that weren't employed, they were struggling. They're really struggling out there. And we had $46 million come into the city of Quincy, and not one penny went into the areas that we really thought it should. $20 million being purchased for purchases of we're not monopoly. It's not a monopoly game. When we could have been putting it into our roads, people will always complain about our roads in the city of Quincy. I mean, there's a lot of things we could have put it into that could have offset the taxes in another way. We couldn't put it into our budget, but we could offset the borrowing that we were going to have, which every municipality has to have to be able to maintain the facilities that we have in our community.
I just looked at the clock, and we're moving right along, a half-hour show, so I do want to get to
Well, I'm
couple
happy
of
to
other
come back.
topics. We'll have you back, absolutely. Let's talk about the Ruth Gordon Amphitheater and the surprise that folks kind of found themselves in.
Yeah, that was an interesting one because we saw that on Facebook, and I was like, that would never, I could not believe, like, there's no way this could happen, is what I thought when I read this on Facebook. I was like, this isn't happening, and this is too much of a stretch, right? And I hadn't been down by Marymount Parkway, and then I decided to take a ride, and then I saw all the trees gone. I thought, that's a whole other issue. And I remember when I got in touch with Commissioner Murphy, and he said, oh, that was in the Quincy Sun 3 weeks ago that we're going to do that. And I thought, so this is another problem, transparency and accountability. Reporting something in the Quincy Sun isn't reporting it to the public, or really, I mean, people have to read, when you read it in the Quincy Sun, it's like, we're taking down a dozen trees. That was clear cutting a whole hill, and and with no explanation, and there was no accountability as to whether the trees are diseased or what they're saying. They're saying that there was a lot of things happening. What they're going to do is take the dirt from that hill and fill in the Ruth Gordon Amphitheater, as they are now developing out Pageant Field to get ready for Flag Day. Another project that was not brought to the city council, not mentioned in the CIPs, no idea. I was told that it was being used ARPA money. I've been tracing that ARPA money. That's pretty much all gone. But I was like, how, where, what? And when I got it back from Mr. Mason, our chief financial officer, and Commissioner Murphy, saying that it will be up to Mr. Mason where he comes up with the money. This is government. This is our taxpayers' money. We don't know where the money's being spent or how it's being spent to say we'll figure it out and let you know when you already have a project going on. This is very concerning to me. And, one of the things I'll say is when I was walking up at Pageant Field, I was like, yeah, I think the pavilion looks a little tired and weak. Like it needs to be. There are things that do need to be done. But we, the city council, are the checks and balances of the administration. It's a strong mayor, but that doesn't give the strong mayor the right to just do and change landscaping without any accountability to the taxpayers or the people in the city of Quincy, without real input.
Where the trees have come down, what was that area going to be used for?
I don't think so nobody really knew. What we understood was that Marymount Road was being taken care of, and that there were going to have bike paths, and it was going to extend the sidewalk. That was the understanding of, I think, most of us. That's what we thought we knew. We didn't realize that, and then and I think it was on the administration's podcast where he talked about having a field, like a field wall that he was going to put in, like a stone field wall that he was going to be putting in alongside there. So now we kind of knew there was some more stuff coming, that they were going to take a couple of trees from the hill, but we never knew they were going to clear cut the whole area. And that's what happened, is they clear cut the whole area, and they're changing the height of the hill, and they're going to put in bushes, and basically we're being told it's going to look beautiful. There was no in any other community, in any other place, they would demand to be able to see, what is this going to look like? There was no plans, nothing shown to the city council, nothing shown to anybody in the city. We're just all being told it's going to be beautiful. Well, this isn't a private enterprise. It's a city government. We have to understand where our money is being spent, what the projects are, and what the priorities are, because there's a lot of priorities going on in the city of Quincy, and things aren't getting done. So now this is another one added to the list of priorities that came from where. Once we got done with, once we cleared the hurdle of, I guess, taking all those trees down, they had to figure out where they're going to put the dirt.
Because we should mention that the administration has now shelved the filling in of the Ruth Gordon Amphitheater.
Well, I want to make sure that people understand this because there's a whole Ruth Gordon Amphitheater group that's out there. What they had said was, for the moment, there was no commitment from this administration that we will not fill it in.
Well, the word shelved doesn't mean done away with.
Yeah. So just in general, what was happening there was that, and there was a lot of until we find another way to honor Ruth Gordon. And there was a lot of mentions of, it looks like a headstone. There's a lot of headstones in the city of Quincy, by the way. There's a lot of markers that look like headstones is what I mean. But the point of the matter is that people are not believing because there's a trust it's really vastly happening through many different organizations, not just Ruth Gordon Amphitheater, but there's a real trust issue that's happening with our government right now saying, well, you're telling us one thing and you're doing another. And we're reading in the paper, it's ARPA money, but it's actually DIF money. We're reading in the Facebook that you're filling it in, but then you're saying you're not until we find something else. So there's a lot of kind of questions as to whether or not something's happening or not. So the concern is that they might still fill it in at some point down the road.
And I think currently, if I'm mistaken, let me know, the dirt has been moved to the General's Bridge area.
Again, I couldn't say that for.
That's what I've been told. I haven't seen that myself.
I have seen it. I have not been told. So at least you're one up on me. So I always go for walks in the city of Quincy, and I went on one on Sunday, and we walked by the General's Bridge. I was like, oh, look, they must be doing some work over there. Finally, they're doing work over there. I thought maybe some project might have started, and it's actually the dirt from, I believe, from the hill. So at least it's being used as a staging area for something else. Unfortunately, it's not. Ross parking lot's not being used for what we thought it was going to be used, but now there's a new pile of dirt, very much similar to a long time ago when Marymount had a big pile of dirt too.
Well, we should mention too that the last topic I think for today, kind of connected though, that the city just got money for the second garage that will be in that area, correct?
Yeah, I think it was $1.5 million.
Right.
Don't think that's going to build a garage. I think what we're talking about for a garage might be closer to maybe $60 or $75 million. So I don't want to get too excited about that, but I think it might be being used, and it's not even enough for the design of the garage. And I'm not even 100% sure if we own the IHOP yet, which is where they want to put the garage. So there's a lot of moving, I want to remind people this is an election year, so it's kind of convenient that all of these things are coming out now because it makes it seem as though everything keeps moving. But if you really go back in time, we've been talking about the same things for the last couple of years. So we were talking about the Ross parking lot and what was going to go into the Ross parking lot pre-COVID. So we've been waiting a substantial amount of time to see these things start to move.
Well, and we are at the end of the program. Much more to talk about, but you're certainly welcome back.
I would love to come back, Mark, because I know that there's always things to talk about. And quite honestly, we have a lot of great things that are happening in the city of Quincy. We have incredible people that live here. And I love to come back and talk and really to understand some of the things that are happening, to share with them with the people who might watch these shows, but also to talk about some of the great things that are happeing too in our city. So thank you very much.
The people who do watch these shows, not might.
Oh, no, I know people watch these shows. I actually get text messages. I'm so sorry that I said that, but I know people. I absolutely. It's so funny because I get text messages saying, "I just saw you," and it's very informative, and I think you do a real justice for the taxpayers out there in the city of Quincy by having people on to be able to discuss the issues that are happening, because we're not having those comments. We're only having, remind you, because QATV covers our council meetings, 10-minute council meetings. We're not really getting to really the work that needs to be done in our council, and it's disturbing to me that we're not having those conversations. You've been covering council for a long time, so you know what I mean.
Indeed, I have. And we'll have you back, definitely.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Thank you at home for watching, and please continue to watch and support Local Access TV for programs just like this.